Review committee?
Well, and that's what we've created
Right,
as a design
here's the
review
problem, the
committee.
design review committee won't have anything to base it on.
Well, if each building that is brought to the city will have to go through that design review process.
And show all 4 elevations.
And show all 4 elevations for each one of those buildings, and that's the point in time when that should be brought up, is at that process.
What if one of the members of that committee says, I don't like it? I don't like that design. I think it should step back a little bit farther.
I guess what it comes down to is that
give some kind of guideline to the design review.
your buyers are gonna come to that point and go, what's happening now? You know, you marketed it one way, they come in and say, well, you know, we've met what you can do, but they've exceeded almost every limit. And the end result is something that's not gonna pass a design review, because nobody in the design review likes it.
Well,
Then what you've done is set up your buyer, potentially.
We're not
all
gonna
I'm
go
recommending
market, we're not gonna go market a product that is not gonna go through the city process. We'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean, at this stage and point of what we're at right here, in order to get this process done, I think you're asking us to take a leap a little bit farther forward than where we're really at. There's a time and a place where that will be an appeal and will be a purpose that we need to address. I don't really think that now is the time that we need to address that.
I'm just encouraging you to put as much in there so that expectations are clear to whoever else comes down the pipe. One of the issues is if you subdivide it between all those different uses and then represent it.
Or try to do, I mean, if that's unclear, but, because at the same time, you can't either have to design it or you have to allow some flexibility.
I mean, worst case scenario is none of these guys are here, I'm not here, you're not there, you know, it's a new group of people, they're looking at this with, you know, fresh eyes going, well, it really was intended here. Now, I mean, my intent, and I don't know if you're on board with this, is to include all the work that you've done as part of the approval, and that would drive that architectural review as well.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're okay with that, you know, maybe we're arguing about things that don't really matter. But.
Well, all the stuff in there, I mean, the intent is that document gets approved and is filed, and they have to adhere to the guidelines in there.
Of that document.
And then, like those materials boards, it calls out specifically, it gives a very detailed list of all the things that have to come to design review. That materials board will be the place where you're actually deciding on materials, and then project one,
where does it say that in this book?
it's right at the first,
Can you just
second page, I think.
show us where that is, and then it'll satisfy that question.
This is right under design review committee, right?
And on this page after that, where it goes into detail of what it is.
It says this report is intended to set forth a process for the management and approval of each phase.
Yep.
Page 3.
And then page 3 goes into what that is. So there's an owner's association, there might be 2, a commercial one and a residential one. And so this design review board would consist of a member of the council, a member of the planning commission, a Willard city planner, a design professional, either appointed by the owners association or perhaps it could be the architect, if you will, that's hired to do that building. And then the member of the owners association board, probably the chairman. And it's the primary goal to ensure that, you know, whatever comes forward meets some of these stepping standards and some of the other issues. And then this is everything that they have to show on their site plan, building dimensions, parking areas, landscape framework for the future.
Do you have any more questions, Ed?
No, I think, yeah, I was a little bit concerned about the wetlands, like you talked about, and also we wanted it to be a transit-oriented development. I know that that's a ways off, but the thoughts are there, it sounds like, so, yeah.
Toby?
Yeah, I have 4. The first one is there a specialty commercial or residential?
Kind of both.
Drawings, you would take that on yourself?
Yeah, we would.
And then you take on the commercial yourself too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
Here's some of their work, just gonna scroll here as you talk.
Let's see.
then question number 3 is, I don't quite understand these phases. They were numbered like there's 4 number 1s, so will they all 4 number 1s go in at The first?
No, that was kind of confusing. That's not intended to show the number of phases, but the number of lots per district. So,
Well, I know you have nine phases, so what's phase number one? Like,
well,
why are they not ordered?
phase number 1 is that whole thing. It's subdividing it into all of those.
Okay, so maybe the terminology I'm not using. What's the first thing that's gonna happen? Is there like a, you know, when you do a subdivision, you have phase number 1, and then when it's almost done, phase number 2, is there?
The whole property in terms of subdivision would be all 9 of those, and building that road extension, that main road. Then 2 of those parcels that are adjacent to that road would then have utilities that could actually be run to those parcels.
Part.
And that part, I'm on board 100%.
So
I'm
either
on-
way,
just
whether I
100%.
build it out and did it myself, or my company did it, or I subcontracted it to
Mhm.
somebody else to do, at the end of the day, you're gonna end up with the
Was an
same.
excellent project, but you don't know yet what you are going to do?
Right now, we're planning on building all of it.
Oh, okay, that's all I was just wondering,
Yeah.
is if that's you, so when we look at your work, that's potentially what
That's the quality you will
it's
see.
going to be, but we won't know until we're into it, if you're actually going to be the one that does it.
Well, and
If it all doesn't get built out for 5 or 10 years, I can't tell you that would outdo it or not.
No, that's.
It's all about
No,
demand.
and that's true, I'm not asking you to commit to something like that, I just want to be on board with what you're thinking, because we hear the plan, but I don't hear how much of it, you know, sometimes the builder comes in and says, this is what I've done in the past, this is what I'm going to do. Rest assured, you're gonna see me through every one of the phases, and we go, okay, we have a relationship, and I just didn't know what part of it you were planning to.
They're
do.
familiar with the housing builder that just came in for a plan development.
Okay.
Basically is going to have a pool of contractors that he'll work with. And so, and I guess what I talked to Chris about is just, you know, express how you're gonna handle that.
Yeah,
We generally have a bunch of subcontractors that actually work under us. Would be the general contractor and construction manager of the entire project. But we would involve, lots of times we would pull from the immediate area. I mean, there are contractors that we use that are out of Brigham City, that do a lot of work for us in the northern Utah area. And so we would pull from those pools of people in the immediate area, and then what we don't have here, we would bring in from Salt Lake or from our own people that we have in-house. But
so to summarize, this emotional investment that we're making in getting to know you, you'll be the one potentially that would be here for the duration. You don't plan on coming in and going, we're gonna get this underway, we're gonna prove it, and then turn it over to another whole entire developer. This is
no, because
your,
I have no personal money involved in this thing.
that's where I just kind of was wondering, not necessarily that you're gonna be out pounding the nails, but that you were the actual developer over all of it, or if you were just a. Perfect. I'm done.
You're done. Mike, have any questions?
Yeah, just for my clarification, on your first phase, you're planning on putting the credit union, convenience store, gas station, and the hotel in? Your very first, is that what?
Well, I mean, again, the process would be to come forward with a preliminary plat and go to final plat, breaking it into those 9 parcels. Then, yes, the credit union and the hotel are the ones that we know of that would come forward with site development plans and would be ready to build. But, you know, the credit union, let's say we put a road right now there and left the parcels as they were, the credit union couldn't do anything because of the nature of that sliver. So, you know, essentially that lot line adjustment or those lot lines need to change in order for them to get a viable buildable plat or pad, and the utilities that would then be also run up that road would be stubbed out and available to those pads.
Okay. The reason I ask is if they put in the hotel and the credit union, and you start having people, you know, visit the hotel and spend the evenings and nights, things there, people are gonna wanna go down to Willard Bay. And I mean, this might be something the city needs to look at, but what access as far as pedestrian traffic is gonna be allowed for them from the hotel to Willard Bay?
That's true.
Because if you're walking down 315, you hit the railroad tracks, I'm assuming, and I know what assume does means, but when you hit the road, up to the railroad tracks, there would be a sidewalk, but from the railroad tracks on would be nothing. and that's a pedestrian hazard, and you're gonna have people walking through there.
Yeah.
That's something else we need to take into consideration.
We have-
talked
we-
a little bit about it.
We have talked to the State Parks and Recreation a little bit about that because, for instance, in the Riverwoods development, we had the same type of issue with the mouth of Provo Canyon and the walkway up there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we actually got on board with the state parks, and they do have a certain amount of federal money that's allocated to develop those types of situations where you have a recreation area on one end and you have a retail type situation on the other end.